Good evening, and welcome to Behind the Shadows. My name is Susan Finelli, and I am the author and host of Behind the Shadows, a program where we explore what goes on behind the shadows of the naked eye. Over the course of our programs, we discuss fun things, we discuss serious things, we go into the world of the eclectic. This evening, we're going to be talking about a very serious subject. Our topic tonight, we will be focusing on drug interaction. And I'm happy to say and welcome tonight's guest. He is a registered pharmacist, and his name is Chris Aprile.
Hey, Susan.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
My pleasure, thank you.
Chris is a member of the New York City Pharmacist Society, and he is the independent owner and operator of Thriftway Pharmacy, located on 10th Avenue between 45th and 46th Streets. So welcome.
Thank you.
Chris, I'd like to know a little bit about how you got involved and interested in being a pharmacist, because I remember once when I was in your store, we were talking about different remedies for upset stomachs, and you said, oh, Coke syrup. I said, oh my goodness, they still sell Coke syrup? And then you told me, well, you know, when I was a kid, so then you can pick up the story from there.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, my father's a pharmacist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's kind of in the family.
Okay.
He didn't really push me into it. I just kind of fell into it, really. And I enjoyed it. It was a good way to help other people. And I'm still here.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Did you work in your father's pharmacy?
My father never owned a pharmacy. He's a hospital pharmacist.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of went slightly different, went into the retail aspect of pharmacy.
So you didn't go into the family business, so to speak.
No, no family business.
Good. Well, tonight I'd like to talk about a very serious topic. We hear about it all the time in the news, drug interaction. So if you could give us a little background of the definition, what is a drug interaction?
Well, a drug interaction is when two drugs combine together to give us an adverse effect, something that we didn't expect. Sometimes they could be very serious. In my experience, I haven't really seen too many in the retail field. I catch a few and stop them, but most of these interactions are probably in hospital.
Right. Well, I think it also can happen when people borrow someone else's drugs.
Oh, of course.
And I'm sure that you've had that experience.
When you take drugs not under the supervision of a healthcare provider, you can run into serious issues. You don't know what you're taking. Right.
And also, I mean, I often wonder with a prescription drug, then I have a headache and I want to take Excedrin, or I want to take something, and then, you know, after it goes, I swallow it. I say, oh my goodness, you know, now what is that going to do, you know? Sure,
of course. So. Well, call me first.
Call you first, yeah. Well, full disclosure, Chris is my mother's pharmacist, and that's, and that's how I broke his arm to get here, to come in, come on our show. Also, I know there's a problem, and I think you called it marrying brands, or when people have the same prescription, but they put them in, take two bottles and put it in one bottle.
Marrying bottles is more of an issue with the pharmacy because you can't track them anymore because the lot numbers have changed. One bottle has one lot number, another bottle has, and you can't track that. But I do have a problem when patients do that. But you add things to a prescription bottle and you no longer know what it is. Your only real reference is what it says on the label. Right. Once you change that, I can't really help too much. I don't know what's in there anymore. And I've seen people say, well, it's the same. I just have a refill. And I say, but the numbers are different. You know, the lot numbers are different. And if something happens and you bring it to the pharmacy and there's nothing wrong with that particular lot, unbeknownst to you, that something came in, you know, through the back door, so to speak. So when a drug interacts with one another, tell me why there is some label warnings, take with milk, don't take with milk, hey, take it with food, don't take it with food. Okay. Why is that, and what can happen if you don't heed the warnings? Okay. Well, it's not really a drug interaction, but if you take certain medications without food, simply cause an upset stomach. Okay. Advil, Motrin, ibuprofen is kind of rough on the stomach, so you want to take that with a snack or a meal. Just to prevent that upset stomach. Okay. Now, are there instances with like over-the-counter drugs
If you combine them, can there be a serious adverse effect to that?
Well, certain antibiotics, if taking with calcium or milk with iron, could limit the effects of the antibiotic. They just won't work as well because they kind of bind together in the body.
In the body. So how does an interaction occur? Like, does the body absorb it wrong, or does it distribute it through the body wrong?
Well, it's all of those things. It could affect the absorption, distribution, elimination. You could take two drugs together that could cause the elimination of a drug from your body to slow down. So now these drugs are starting to build up in your body, and you're getting more of an effect than you expected.
I see.
So you can become toxic in your body.
And I can assume that metabolism plays a role?
Sure, you could slow down your metabolism, you could increase your metabolism. All these things have effects. And sometimes it's just difficult to tell that it's going to happen.
So that means it's important, you know, they always say, tell your pharmacist every drug you take.
Right.
Because if you don't...
I want to know everything you're taking. Because you can leave one thing out, and that could be the thing that I would say, oh, that was it. You know, you should have told me, or I could have stopped something. Now,
why do vitamins interact? I read a lot that, you know, well, if you're taking such and such, don't take a vitamin.
Well, it's usually the binding effect that we just spoke about. You could take an antibiotic, and vitamins have iron, they have vitamin C. All these things could limit the effects. They kind of bind together in the body and just get eliminated, just don't work as well.
Now, I know a particular drug, Coumadin. Vitamin K is like taking poison.
Well,
why is that?
That's like the opposite effect. So you're taking two things that are canceling each other out. So Coumadin is a blood thinner. Vitamin K is something to make your blood thicker, actually. So you're kind of canceling each other out.
It's like double negative, right?
Absolutely.
A double negative, right? Exactly. Now, also, when you're taking a sedative, and there are side effects, and I understand if you're taking a sedative with an antihistamine. Well,
an antihistamine could have a sedative effect right there.
So that could put you under.
Well, right. If you're already taking a sedative, you're taking something to sleep or something for anxiety that kind of calms you down, and then you take something with another sedative effect, well, you're combining that. Now you have more of a sedative effect, so you could be at work and not realize it and be more tired and not be able to complete your work. If you're driving, have an issue with that.
I want to talk a little bit about, and we have samples here this evening of different types of prescription bottles and how people deal with them.
Sure.
And especially the senior citizens who take bottles, and like these two bottles in particular look the same. And
well, sure, they look the same, but always read your label. At least if you have something, it has your name on it, it has the name of the drug and the directions. But if you take these pills out and put in something else, if you put it into a pill box, now you no longer have a reference. You know that there's 5 pills in there, but especially if they're generic drugs and they may look a little bit different, you don't know exactly what's going on. You don't know what you're taking.
What you're taking. Now, you know, also now here, I see that you brought something that kind of the days of the time of day, actually.
Well, as you can see how it gets even more complex.
Yes.
I mean, some people think it's easier because you have, well, I wake up in the morning, I'll take this, but it could be difficult to open. You could drop them on the floor, and then I think you may have some issues with that.
Then you have issues with that. Okay, now just out of curiosity, I see bottles here that, you know, how old are those bottles?
They're probably older than I am, yes. It's kind of interesting, kind of my little collection that I like.
So in whatever circa that is, did they not have prescription labels? Did you just got a bottle that said, you know?
Well, they had less medications, so it was much easier to have labels ready. So the pharmacist would just simply write your name in on it and have a stock label, pull a label off and put it on the bottle. But there are so many medications in the pharmacy nowadays that everything has to be done right then and there.
Right. I'm curious, and it has nothing to do with interaction actually, but how does a particular drug know what to target in the body?
Well, as a job for the scientist, really. I mean, it just, you know, it affects different parts of the body. So you can take a particular drug and it won't affect your brain, but it'll affect your heart. It'll affect smooth muscles. It'll go directly to your arteries to constrict them or to release them to control your blood pressure. Some will go right to your kidneys to release more water. It's just the mechanism.
Someone that is seriously ill, I mean, it's not just taking a pill. The doctors behind prescribing that medication, it's a very serious thing to.
Of course, medication and healthcare is very serious.
Yeah, it's very, very serious. So what happens? So I want to talk a little bit about what the consequences are of drug interaction, and obviously death.
Well,
you know, it's unfortunate that almost every other week we turn on the news or we pick up a paper and we read of someone famous, and you know, Michael Jackson, obviously.
Well, of course.
Now,
we all know that story.
What happened with that story?
Too much medication.
Too much medication.
Absolutely. Just too much of everything, and things that he probably should not have been on. And only under the supervision of one doctor, I believe. I think there should have been more doctors involved.
Well, that's an interesting concept. Talk to me a bit about the concept of not just going to one doctor.
Second opinion?
Second opinion.
I think second opinion is very important. One opinion could be very good, but it's good to have a little bit of a team there. Have your pharmacist involved, have a doctor involved, have specialists involved, depending how serious your cases are.
Well, you know, that's interesting, because you say a second opinion. We go to, you know, if I have a shoulder that hurts, I'll go for a second opinion, but I never thought to go to a second opinion and say, what do you think? Should I be taking, I mean, should people do something like that?
Well, it depends how severe your case is. If you have high blood pressure and you're kind of controlled under one medication, no problem. But if you have a severe illness, absolutely, you should be talking to as many people as possible to get their opinions. You have professionals out there that want to help. Find them, seek them out.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the warnings that come in. I mean, I don't know if a warning comes in
There's
here.
There's warnings on everything.
But you have to be a scientist just to read a warning. You do.
True.
Yeah, you do. And, you know, I, for one, you know, I don't read that, and I'm confessing here to a pharmacist. I don't read it until after I swallow it, you know, and then if something bothers me, I say, oh, well, let me look at that. You know, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I shouldn't have had milk or something with that.
Chances are most things that you take over the counter are not going to give you a problem. If you're taking one prescription medication, you take something over the counter, chances are you'll be okay. The more medications you're on, the more likely you are to have an interaction. Then you should be more careful.
Okay. Getting back to the celebrity deaths, only because our audience, that's whom they can relate to. I'm sure, you know, deaths go on every day of the week that we don't hear about. But what happened with Heath Ledger? We were talking about him a little bit before the show. Well,
I believe it was an accident. He he wasn't educated on what he was taking. He was taking probably a couple for anxiety, and then his friends probably gave him something and he took a little bit extra, and he just didn't wake up. He just went to sleep, had severe respiratory depression, and that just put him to sleep. And unfortunately, we lost someone dear to all of us.
Yeah, a great star. So when people are taking their prescription drugs, and unfortunately, there are too many recreational drugs that are very accessible to people.
Right.
That probably is, I mean, what does it do? Burst the heart? What does that do?
It stops you. Usually it depresses your breathing. It just slows down every muscle you have, including your heart and your lungs, and you...
And your brain doesn't say, do something?
Well, it's depressed also. Everything is slowed down.
Everything is slowed down. Thinking process.
Most of these occur with downers, with depressants, when people take too many things to calm them down.
Right.
And everything goes to sleep.
Everything goes wacky.
Yeah.
Okay. What, other than death, and I mean, I have a whole list here, Anna Nicole Smith, I mean,
well,
famous.
Same situation, just too many drugs.
Now, Casey Johnson, she was a diabetic, I understand.
And there you go. Now you're complicating the situation even more. The more drugs a person is on, the more likely there is to be an interaction or an adverse reaction.
Right, right. And diabetes is an epidemic today, you know, as I understand it.
In the United States, absolutely.
In the United States. So, you know, the diabetics out there should be really conscious of what they're taking to control themselves.
I agree.
Other than death, there are other consequences
to your medications.
Let's talk about that. Because people say, well, I'm not going to die, I don't take cocaine, and you know, but what else can happen to someone?
Well, it could be as simple as a rash, simple as a headache, upset stomach. But there could be a good consequence when a doctor puts two medications together and you get a reaction if you have uncontrolled blood pressure.
Right.
and you're taking one pill that's not really working that well to control your blood pressure, add another one. Well, these two together form a similar side effect, but that side effect could be good.
Right.
And it controls your blood pressure even better than one drug was.
What now, other than rashes? I mean, I'm allergic to penicillin. I'm allergic to sulfur. I get hives. I get rashes. Can you get a stroke? I mean, can you get a very serious, other than dying? Can something serious happen?
Probably anything is possible. It's not probable, but possible.
But it's definitely possible.
Anything can happen. Sometimes we're not even sure. Some of the reactions are mystery, like the grapefruit juice. Grapefruit juice. That? Well, it's a mystery.
What's with that?
We don't we don't really know what's going on.
Right.
So if you come to me and you're telling me you're taking a medication, well, I'm going to tell you, just forget the grapefruit juice. Don't drink it. I know everyone in Florida is going to be mad because all the grapefruit growers are upset.
I have Florida viewers too.
Well, I'm very sorry. Well, drink orange juice instead.
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't know what's going on with the grapefruit juice, but there's something in it that affects the elimination of the drugs. Something with your liver, and we don't know what it is. Unfortunately, for everyone taking medication, just avoid the grapefruit juice for now.
Now, I know that there's a shelf life of a drug in your body.
A half-life. It's called a half-life.
Is that what it's called, a half-life?
Right.
So is that why they say take it every 3 hours or every 10 hours or whatever it is?
Well, sure, because when you first take a medication, your blood levels go to a certain degree and stay there.
Right.
When it starts falling off, well, I want you to take it again. So if you're taking something for your blood pressure or whatever it is, an antibiotic, I want you to take it at the same time every day, because that'll keep your blood levels even.
Now, what happens when a drug has the same side effect? So if you're taking two different drugs which produce the same side effect?
Well, like I said, sometimes it could be good, like your blood pressure medications can work together, but it could also be detrimental, where if you're taking something for pain, which makes you tired, but then you take a cold medication, NyQuil.
It makes you more tired.
Makes you more tired. So now you're combining these together, and you're really tired, and you're drowsy, and you won't be able to function like you normally do.
Okay. How often do drug interactions occur?
They occur a lot. Well, like I said, in the retail aspect, I don't see it that often. But I'm sure in nursing homes, when everyone's on a lot of medications, it probably happens quite often. In hospitals, it happens more often.
Now, drug interactions and the what they cause, either the side effects, the death, the illnesses, really hits a very hot topic of today's world, which is healthcare.
Of course.
Because I'm sure that it adds to the rising cost of healthcare.
It adds millions of dollars, I'm sure. When a drug interaction occurs, you go to the hospital, you have to deal with the ambulance to pick you up. There's just so many more healthcare professionals that have to get involved when something happens, and most of these are avoidable. Read the labels, speak to your doctors, speak to your pharmacist, make sure you know what's going on, educate yourself about the medications. You're your own best doctor. You know your body, take care of it.
Well, I think that we should probably lobby, I guess, the drug companies to make the inserts a little more user-friendly. First of all, they put the warnings at the very end. So at the beginning, you see the the little chemistry formulas and it's tiny print. And by the time you get to everything, so by the time you get to the bottom,
Well, it's all about marketing.
It's marketing.
As you see, two sides of the box are dedicated to shelf space, so you see the brand name right away, and then everything else is fine print. It's what the government makes them put on the bottles.
So now I understand that in addition to the drugs causing their own interaction, the body itself can contribute. Your genes can contribute. Talk a little bit about what the physiology of the body does with a drug interaction. Lifestyle, age?
Sure. I guess it depends on your health as it is. If you're a healthy individual, you're probably able to overcome some of these adverse reactions or interactions. You could just recover faster. The older you are, the longer it's going to take to overcome something. You're more likely to have an interaction, and that's lifestyle. Genes, I guess some people are more likely to be affected by things because of their heredity. If earlier family member had issues or allergies to one thing, probably the children will be also.
No, it's interesting because I'm allergic to sulfur and my mother is allergic to sulfur.
Okay.
But I'm allergic to penicillin and she's not.
Well,
yeah,
things change, I guess.
Unless a great-great-grandparent, who knows, was allergic to that. I've also read that some drugs have been pulled from the market. From the market.
Well, that happens all the time. If they find that a particular drug has too many interactions, and it happens all the time, well, the risks outweigh the benefits. If this drug is not helping people, let's just get rid of it. It's just not worth it. And sometimes that's a learning experience. Unfortunately, it costs us a lot. It may cost a life, but it's a learning experience. We can't, scientists can't see everything.
Now, when they test the drug, when they come up and they invent this drug and they test it, obviously they're testing it on rats or mice, correct?
Well, that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. So, I mean, how do they say when they're testing it on a rodent, okay, now let's test it on a human being? Like, how do you get from a rodent to me?
If the rodent survives, then we ask for volunteers. And you get a control group of people that try the drug.
Are we similar to rodents that...
Well, similar in a sense. I mean, things are similar in both of our bodies, but things are different. Metabolism is different. Elimination is different. How do we find out? You have to try.
Well, I see in the local papers every day, they're looking for, tests, if you have depression, or you have diabetes, if you have a bunion. I mean,
and people volunteer all the time.
They volunteer all the time.
Yes.
Now, what's the liability with?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot, but they sign waivers.
They sign waivers.
I'm sure the drug companies would not allow people to sue them. They would sign waivers, and if something happens, something happens.
Sayonara, you're gone.
Yeah, but you're being monitored. It probably does happen, but I'm sure it's rare that there are major side effects or deaths at that point. We just have to see what happens.
You just have to see what happens.
And then it gets out into the mass market, and now millions of people are taking it.
Yes.
So the control group is so much larger.
It's uncontrolled.
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 Exactly. And then you really see what's going on. And then at that point, some drugs do come off the market.
They do come off the market. Yeah. It's kind of scary. I mean, it really is.
It is,
yeah, because
yes.
you don't know what you're taking. A doctor gives you something to take, and you say, okay, I have to take this because if I don't, I die. But then there's that little devil on this side. Well, maybe you'll die if you take it.
There's always a possibility of adverse reaction.
Yeah. Now, I know in some infusion drugs, intravenous drugs, I know that some of the doctors, they time them because of the kidneys. I know, I've heard doctors say, well, I don't want this pushed too fast because of the kidneys.
Well, because the kidneys are part of our elimination process. You don't want to make the kidneys work too hard. You give too many drugs at once, we can't eliminate it from the body, and those drugs start building up, and you're more likely to get a side effect as those drugs build up in your system.
And could something like that cause kidney failure?
Yes, absolutely. If your kidneys work too hard, it would cause kidney. If you work your car too hard, it's not going to work.
Exactly. It doesn't work.
It's the same idea in your body. If you push something too much, it might not work anymore.
It's interesting you use the analogy of a car because every doctor I know compares the body to the car.
Well, true. Well, it's a good analogy. You have to take care of your car. You have to change the oil. The same thing. You have to eat well, and you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Okay. In your practice,
yes.
Do many people come to you and say, should I be taking this with what, or they just walk away like I do?
I'd say half the people that come to the store always ask me a question, and I'm very available in my store. You can come in, and I'm always willing to talk to you. I may be busy, but I'll stop once in a while and help you out. But yes, I do get a lot of questions in the store.
Well, I know you have a big senior clientele just because where you're located. Is that put an extra, I don't want to say burden, but responsibility, an extra responsibility?
Yes, I do have to work a little bit harder because that population is on more medications. The more medications you are on, the more likely there is to be an interaction. And it does take a little bit more work to pay attention to all those patients and the drugs they're on. Now,
I know an important thing to keep track of the drugs, not I as a patient, but you as a healthcare provider. To know everything I take. I come to you with a prescription.
Yes.
So I give you a prescription and you fill it. But in the meantime, back at the ranch, I've sent away to my my prescription program tells me,
yes,
you know, these pills you can bring to your pharmacy, but these pills you have to send away. And if you don't, we charge you 10 times the amount.
I have a big problem with that. I can't monitor everything. How do I know what else you're taking? So you're forced by these insurance companies to send away for your drugs.
Yes.
They don't know what I'm giving you. I don't know what they're giving you. And we could have a likelihood of an interaction. And that alone will cause an increase in healthcare costs. So by mailing away, we think we're saving, but we're not. It's only a matter of time before everyone starts to see that.
Well, and I know the disparity in the price is astronomical because, you know, I took a prescription drug to a pharmacist and he said, well, it's $88 for 30 days.
Right.
But if you send away, you get $90 for $14.
Well, do you want to know why?
Yeah.
Well, because the insurance plans own the pharmacies that they're sending your drugs to. So, of course, they want you to go there. They'll give you a discount and cut out the middleman.
Is this somehow folded into our great new healthcare legislation?
I hope not.
No, I mean to change it.
Well, to change, yes. I hope the changes are good. I hope that we don't have mail order anymore.
Right.
I think it's a detriment to the patient. I mean, who do you call when you have an issue with your drug, when you mail away for it?
You don't call anybody.
Oh.
Right, who do you call? But I know that you're my mother's pharmacist. If she has a problem, I call you and I tell you, oh, and by the way, she's on this, because I know that you're not prescribing that because her insurance company is forcing her to send it someplace.
And how does the guy that explains everything to you stay in business?
Exactly.
Oh, I'll answer all your questions, but I don't get paid for it.
Right.
And I could only help you if I'm in business.
That's right. It's true. And I know that when I take my mother to the doctor, and she, you know, she's elderly, so we go to several different doctors, and they always ask me, what is she on? And even if we're there and 3 weeks later we're there again, like, don't you write it down? You know, well, things could change.
Well, I think the doctor has it written down.
Yes.
But he's asking you just in case, because just like you're going to him, you could be going to another doctor that's prescribing something else.
Exactly.
So I think that's a good question for the doctor to be asking.
So, oh my goodness, we're running out of time. We've just scratched the surface, and I see my great camera person Lorraine telling me that we're running out of time. But we'll have to finish this. You'll have to come again one day.
Oh, is there a part two?
Well, I think we're going to have a part two because we didn't scratch the surface. But I want to thank Chris for joining us this evening and sharing his expertise with us.
My pleasure. It was fun.
And I apologize that we didn't get a chance to discuss everything we wanted to, but I promise we will have you back. And a special thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If there's a special topic that you would like us to discuss, you can contact me at susan@behindtheshadows.com. If you have missed any of our programs, you can log on to my website at www.behindtheshadows.com and click on Public Access Television, and that will take you to our previous shows. Until next time, remember, the brightest light shines behind the shadows. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. That was fun.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was very good. 20 minutes.